Huw Edwards has been sentenced to 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. The Chief Magistrate, Paul Goldscream, said his crimes are extremely serious offences, but he doesn't believe that Edwards presents a risk or a danger to children. And this sentence also includes a sex offender treatment programme and 25 rehabilitation sessions. So, Martin, as you said, unlikely that he would have got a custodial sentence here, but he has been sentenced to 6 months in prison, but that is suspended. He will be able to walk away today, but he will have to go on this sex offender treatment programme and take part in a number of rehabilitation sessions.
Yes, I think it's more or less what we expected, and bear in mind that the young man who'd sent him these photographs, Alec Williams, had avoided prison. He got a suspended sentence. I think his suspended sentence might have been a bit longer than Huw Edwards. So yes, much as expected. I mean, that's a very serious sentence, of course. Still, it is a jail sentence, albeit suspended for 2 years.
And
of
Martin,
course,
as we talk to you, sorry
Huw
to
Edwards...
cut across you again, Martin, but as we talk to you, you may not be able to see, we're just showing an image, which is the first time we've been able to show this image. This is the police mugshot of Huw Edwards just after he was arrested, staring stony-faced into the camera, it has to be said. But do continue. You were talking about the rehabilitation programmes that he will now have to go on.
Yes, I mean, I don't suppose any of us look our best in a police mugshot. He does look rather haunted, very concerned about the position he's obviously just found himself in. This would have been taken in November last year when he was arrested. And that arrest may have come as a complete shock to him, and I think all of that is you can read in his face staring at the police camera in the police station then. Yes, so a prison sentence but suspended, much as we anticipated. But not the community sentence that had seemed quite likely. But a part of that, what we were talking about as a community sentence, sex offender treatment programme. I don't know whether he's been given a sexual harm prevention order. Maybe not, because I think the judge said that he didn't consider that Huw Edwards was a continuing risk to children. But he does have to submit to 25 rehabilitation sessions. So clearly the judge feels that there is a good chance of him being rehabilitated. And there was that difference of opinion between the prosecution and the defence about the level of risk that Huw Edwards still posed. The judge's view, he doesn't pose, I think that's what he said, he doesn't pose a risk, continuing risk to children, but does see the need for the rehabilitation sessions that will be carried out over the coming weeks and months.
Just now after 1 o'clock, if you're just joining us, the breaking news this hour is that Huw Edwards, former BBC News presenter, has been sentenced to 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years for the creation of child abuse images. The Chief Magistrate said that the crimes are extremely serious offences, but that he doesn't believe that Huw Edwards presents a risk or a danger to children. The sentence includes a sex offender treatment programme and 25 rehabilitation sessions. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt is at Westminster Magistrates Court, where that sentence has just been handed down. And Martin, Mr. Edwards arrived this morning with a small case with him. He will now leave the court. He is not going to be staying in custody. And we'll sort of face the gamut of the media out there, protesters out there as well, and then, as we have discovered during this court case, returning to a private mental health facility.
Yes, all of that lies ahead of him. He still has to run what the judge called the gauntlet of leaving court. He offered him the opportunity to come out and have a cup of coffee while he was awaiting sentence. And, I guess, not surprisingly, Huw Edwards chose not to do that, but he does have to leave by the front door. And there are, well, several dozen cameras here. I mean, there isn't a huge gathering of passers-by. There is this small protest that I talked about earlier, people who are very concerned about Huw Edwards, a convicted sex offender who for many, many years was paid by the BBC. In the BBC's defence, it wasn't until, as far as we know, a year or so ago that it became aware of any illegality that Huw Edwards was involved in. So yeah, he'll come out in the next few minutes, I imagine. He might want to sit with his lawyers and just reflect on what he's just heard, but undoubtedly he'll be feeling mightily relieved that he didn't get a jail sentence, but a suspended sentence, which is serious enough. And he must have anticipated the other things that the judge has given him. So going on the sex offender treatment programme and 25 rehabilitation sessions that he will have to submit to. But apart from that, he will be a free man, and we can only imagine what life holds for him now. And the judge made the point, as if it needed making, that his reputation is in tatters. His career, of course, is over as a journalist. And I did read recently that Huw Edwards had attempted to offer himself for free in some kind of role as an advisor or a journalist, with all the experience that he's had. Something that I read had been posted on LinkedIn, that platform, professional platform, but was very quickly removed. Perhaps a sign of, sense, an acknowledgement that nobody, I would think, is going to want to hire Huw Edwards in any form, paid or unpaid, certainly in the near future, if forever. So it's very difficult to. I don't think you can underestimate how difficult life is going to be for Huw Edwards, because he's such a recognisable figure and convicted of some very, very serious sex crimes.
You're just talking to us, Martin, and we ponder that. As I pointed out earlier, at the heart of this, child victims of horrific sexual abuse, and the head of the children's charity, Bernardo's, has released a statement in the last few minutes talking about the impact these kind of crimes have on the youngsters who are filmed, or even if they, are filming these images themselves, the impact that they perhaps don't realise what they're getting themselves into, and that must not be forgotten.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, the prosecutor said earlier on in the hearing that the mere viewing of such images exploits victims and perpetuates sexual and psychological harm, even though it is indirect. And he's talking about just viewing. I mean, the crimes for which Huw Edwards pleaded guilty was for receiving these images, but the law states very clearly that by receiving them and opening them in whatever format they're sending you, being sent to you, is a crime. And it wasn't as though Huw Edwards, was sent these things randomly, these images, and then, shut off all communication with Alex Williams, the young man who was sending them to him. He did actively encourage him to send more. And when he was asked by Alex Williams, do you want me to send you underage images? He said yes. Go on. So he can hardly say that these were unsolicited. Well, in fact, he hasn't argued that these were unsolicited images, and he did encourage the sending of more images from the man, young Alex Williams, who was sending them. So he did, in that sense, perpetuate his crimes. And when police did eventually go through his phone, they found 377 sexual images, 41 of which were illegal, were indecent images of underage children, which all led to Huw Edwards admitting 3 cases, 3 charges of making indecent images of children. So yes, even though a lot has been said in his defence, and even some of his problems, his health problems acknowledged by the prosecution, at the heart of this case does lie a number of sexually abused children.
Martin, we understand that Huw Edwards has left the dock now, described as looking stony-faced, pursing his lips, has left to reconvene with his team. The judge telling him, I'm sure you will have a lot to think about. I mean, that is an understatement, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, job to know where to start, isn't it? I mean, he'll feel lucky, I suppose, that he's avoided going to prison with all the horrors that would have meant for him. And what does he do with his life? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't sound as though there have been restrictions put on where he can live and where he can move around, or his use of the internet. None of that seems to have been imposed, although he does have to submit to the sex offender treatment programme. So there may be advice about his use of the internet and his whereabouts, his movements. But again, the judge made it clear that he didn't think that Huw Edwards still posed a risk to children. But he's not an old man. He's 63. He had his 63rd birthday between his admission in court of those charges and today's sentencing. We've heard that he's not. He has physical and mental health problems, but he's walked in and out of court quite ably. So he looks a reasonably fit man. So what is he going to do with the rest of his life? I mean, I guess we would all love to sit down and talk to him and find out what he feels. But he hasn't spoken during this hearing. He didn't speak in the last hearing. He hasn't issued any statement. And I guess part of the explanation for that is that he is still undergoing psychiatric mental health treatment in a hospital, as we learned today. So I can't imagine that he's going to say anything when he comes out of court. I hope I'm proved wrong, but I think it's very unlikely. We'll know in the next few minutes.
And we're expecting to get a statement from the CPS also today, the Crown Prosecution Service.
Yes, I imagine we'll. We are going to get a statement from Crown prosecutors, probably just saying, how they went about dealing with this case, how they decided to bring those charges. I mean, of course, their work will have followed the police investigation, the Metropolitan Police investigation, and we'll hear from the Metropolitan Police as well, I'm sure, about how they began their investigation and how that progressed, and how, in consultation with the CPS, the Crown prosecutors, they formulated those charges. And I think there will be, for public consumption, some explanation about exactly what those charges do mean and how you can be charged with making images even if you didn't create them, because as I've been saying all day, the law around the making, possession, distribution of child sex images is quite complicated and does take some understanding. So I think it probably is incumbent on the Metropolitan Police and the Crown prosecutors to explain in some detail what those charges mean, and also, of course, why they are so serious and why they can attract, particularly in this case, a potential maximum sentence of 10 years in prison.
Just as we're talking, the Crown Prosecution Service have now released that statement. They've gone through what's happened in court today and refreshed our memories that the South West Police investigation identified that he was in communication with Huw Edwards from a different case, and what happened between those. And they say accessing indecent images of children perpetuates the sexual exploitation of them, which has deep, long-lasting trauma for these victims. The CPS and the Metropolitan Police were able to prove that Edwards was receiving illegal images and videos involving children via WhatsApp. This prosecution sends a clear message that the CPS, working alongside the police, will work to bring to justice those who seek to exploit children wherever that abuse takes place. And that is key, isn't it, Martin? And, you know, that if there wasn't a market, in inverted commas, as it were, for these images, then these images wouldn't be being created in the first place.
Absolutely. It is that key phrase that, you know, accessing, viewing them, perpetuates the sexual exploitation. I mean, that's the key phrase. And yeah, you're right. If there wasn't a market, if there weren't people like Huw Edwards who got whatever it is they get out of viewing these images, then children wouldn't be put into that position where they are abused by people who want to take videos and still photographs of them. It's as simple as that. And you know, as I said earlier, sometimes you need these organisations, the police and the prosecutors, to remind the public why these crimes are so serious and why they attract potentially huge prison sentences.
Martin, as we await Huw Edwards coming out of the Magistrates' Court there, let's return to Liam Cottrey, a criminal defence lawyer. And Liam, what do you make of this sentence, 6 months suspended sentence? What do you make of it?
Well, we heard about the mitigation, we heard about the psychiatric report, the pre-sentence report, the allegation itself, and all of these were quite common scenarios that I've heard time and time again. What was unique in this case was the offender and the sentence passed. Again, almost always, if not always, these cases are committed to the Crown Court for sentence, and a sexual harm prevention order is imposed to restrict the way people use internet-enabled devices. This hasn't happened in this case. It must be different for some other reason, hopefully other than the fact that he is the celebrity that he is. Of course, he has a huge fall from grace, 63 years old, an incredible career before his conviction. And now he is having to deal with the shame of this, which is mitigation in itself. But a 6 months suspended sentence, the maximum sentence, prison sentence that the judge could pass in the Magistrates' Court has been passed today. But no sexual harm prevention order, quite surprising.
He does, though, have to sign the sex offenders register for 7 years, paying over £3,000 in costs and a victim surcharge, and also 25 rehabilitation sessions. Is that unusual?
The sex offenders register is mandated by law. That's not at the discretion of the judge. That applies when someone is convicted of these offences, and then the length, the duration of the order, or the notification requirements, or placement on the sex offenders register is dictated by the length of sentence that they receive. So this isn't something that's been passed by the judge. In terms of the rehabilitation requirements as part of the suspended sentence, very common and very important. He needs rehabilitation. It's of course good to hear that he's taken these steps previously. We've heard a lot about the indirect effect on the abuse of children as a result of this kind of offending. It's so often the case that defendants in these situations don't think about those effects because it's indirect. It's not an excuse. They should think about it, and it's only when they are caught that they show that insight. It's very sad, and hopefully the work by Bernardo's and others will show that show the real causes or the real impact by this kind of offending.
And also, we heard today that he is now living in a mental health facility. That he is also considered potentially a suicide risk. Will that have affected the judge's decision about sentencing at all, or is that something that they don't take into consideration?
They certainly do. Personal mitigation is very significant, especially when someone pleads guilty. It gives the judge a much wider range of mitigation to be able to listen to. In these circumstances, the fact that he was suicidal, the fact that he not only needs the treatment, but he is seeking out the treatment required, because there are so many who require treatment who don't accept it. The fact that he's actually accepting treatment and doing all he can to rehabilitate himself will have gone a long way with the judge. But again, not uncommon. These cases are often investigated for years before charge. And once someone is first arrested and interviewed by the police, then it gives them an opportunity to reflect, to see what rehabilitation that they can seek themselves before they are sentenced. So again, not unusual. This, in terms of the offending, in terms of the offences, the allegation, this is not a unique case.
It's appalling, isn't it, when you say it's not a unique case and that you've actually represented hundreds of people charged with this offence. Just how prevalent is it now?
Well, it seems in my office it's very prevalent because we deal with so many, but of course we're talking about a big population. These are almost always middle-aged plus men who are going through some kind of depression, some kind of void in their life, where they seek escapism. Some people turn to video games or building model planes. Some go to the internet, to pornography, to chat rooms, to meeting people like the co-defendant in Mr. Edwards' case, and eventually find themselves doing something that sometimes they never thought they would. Often they don't actively seek out these people, and these people aren't necessarily paedophiles, but of course the definition is open to interpretation. They're people who have found themselves in these situations who need some kind of rehabilitation, ideally before these things happen. And interestingly, it's always men. Men who don't talk about their feelings, talk about problems that they're going through in their lives, not dealing properly with their depression, and find themselves in these situations. Not excuses. He's made a choice. He made a choice, and all these offenders have made that choice to receive these images, to view these images. But the context of the offending is always important.
And also, not an excuse, but what was clear from the court and through his lawyers was a really heartfelt apology, an understanding of what he had actually done, and an apology to those around him that it had affected, including his family and his children.
Yes, well, interestingly, we talked earlier about whether or not he would speak on his own behalf and whether or not that would be encouraged. Well, it seems he did, but through a letter. And not only are the abused children, of course, the primary victims in these kinds of situations. They're not the only victims, of course. There are, for a better word, lesser victims. His family, those close to him, the public, who've trusted him for decades to deliver the news to them on the BBC of all places. And all of those people have been severely let down. His wife, of course, has no doubt been through hell in these circumstances. Another innocent victim as a result of his offending.
The court also heard of his mental health struggles, but also his physical health struggles, that he suffers with arteriosclerosis, which causes the gradual hardening of the arteries. And the court was told that the effect of these conditions includes an impact on and an impairment of mood, behaviour and judgment. I mean, do you think that this is a fair enough thing to raise in the court? I mean, you know, we all know that physical ailments can have all sorts of impacts, but suggesting that sort of hardening of the arteries can affect your judgment. Is this something that you, as a defence lawyer, would have suggested?
With evidence from an expert, perhaps. If an expert told me that that was the case, I'm no doctor. I couldn't say whether or not this is the case in this particular situation or any other. But it was fully accepted by all parties that Mr. Edwards suffered from mental health conditions, depression and so on. Whether or not that was due to physical ailments, I'm unaware. Whether or not it was accepted in court that it was due to physical ailments, I do not know. But it's not uncommon to talk about physical illnesses in these situations. It doesn't take a doctor or an expert to realise that a serious physical condition can affect someone's mental health. And if someone is proven to have mental health issues plus physical issues on top, it's not a jump or a leap to suggest that the physical condition exacerbates the mental.
And in terms of the punishment that he's received, I mean, surely the point of all punishments for crime is to prevent a reoccurrence of that crime and to lead to some kind of rehabilitation. We've been talking a lot about, you know, the fact that he is not going to prison, that it's a suspended prison sentence. But in terms of the kind of rehabilitation sessions that he has been told he must go on, what is the success rate? Do these particular courses actually bear fruit?
Well, I find that the arrest itself, and again, I was talking about these investigations sometimes going on for years. It's not unusual for someone to be arrested and then not charged until 2 years later. then we're talking about sentencing in the following month. So well over 2 years for someone to be sentenced for a crime they committed a long time before. It's often the case for me, I find, and this is probably anecdotal, but dealing with many of these cases, that the horse has already bolted. They don't tend to reoffend in that 2 year period, if it is a 2 year period, and mainly due to the shock of what's happened. It's often a relief when people are arrested. They find themselves in this web of lies between themselves and their family and their computer, where they are hiding such a terrible secret. It's often a relief when people are finally arrested. That sometimes they know that it's coming in the back of their mind. When it finally does, it's a relief, and then they don't offend again. It's in fact unusual for people to reoffend. I think it's a great idea that people are given rehabilitation requirements as part of any kind of suspended sentence order or community order. But again, it sometimes feels like it's well after the horse has bolted.
And in terms of this case itself, I mean, obviously it's received such a huge amount of publicity from the outset of the allegations first being made. Do you think, I mean, I don't know if you have a view on this, will this lead to perhaps people pausing before they perhaps click on images in the future, knowing that actually now it's been made very clear that just by actually looking at an image, it is classed as creating it and you are committing an offence?
Well, one would hope people would already know that's an offence, but perhaps a high-profile person such as Mr. Edwards being convicted of this crime and sentenced and in the full public eye will hopefully deter others. I think that's much more likely to deter others than any sentence itself. It's often the case that just someone's name appearing in the paper, so their family, friends, neighbours, the rest of their acquaintances know about the situation they've been in, the shame that it puts on them, the fact that they can lose their job, it changes their lives entirely, can be worse than any sentence that a court may pass. So hopefully, and let's face it, it is real shame that Mr. Edwards faces today will deter further potential offenders.
We're getting a statement, just as we talk to you, Liam, from the BBC. A spokesperson says he has betrayed not just the BBC, but audiences who put their trust in him. We are appalled by his crimes. I think that this is just a small snapshot of perhaps possibly a larger statement that we may well be getting from the BBC very, very soon. Yeah, the BBC saying that we are appalled by his crimes, that Huw Edwards has betrayed not just the BBC, but the audiences who put their trust in him. Maybe we should return to our correspondent, Martin Brunt, who is down there outside Westminster Magistrates Court. We think that Huw Edwards is about to leave very, very shortly, Martin. He left the court and consulted with his legal teams, leaving now, facing sort of the gamut of all of those cameras, and presumably return immediately to the private mental health facility that he is now living in.
I imagine that's where he's headed. I can't see him in the court foyer, but colleagues inside say that he's on his way. He clearly wanted some time to pause for breath, I suppose, and talk to his legal team. He doesn't have to quite run the gauntlet that he did when he was here in July. You remember those pictures of the video of the scrum that he walked through of, understandably, many, many cameras and journalists. The police got here early and have put up barriers, crushed barriers, to keep us all. In fact, I was told to stand in the media pen a couple of hours ago when I dared to venture into the main area outside court. And everybody's being very well behaved. There are a lot of cameras, of course, as you would imagine. Some protesters who don't like the BBC. And he should quite easily get away from court to the car. A car has just pulled up, whether that's the one that's waiting for him. I mean, these things are normally pretty well coordinated. Yeah, he's coming now, so you're about to see him leaving court with his legal team.
Inevitable that as he does come out, that there will be probably quite a lot of shouting at him. Let's listen in as he comes out of the court buildings at Westminster Magistrates Court. And Martin, there he gets into his car where he is being driven away. That must have been quite a surreal experience for him in the sense that he was walking past colleagues that he will have known, colleagues that he will have spoken to, as I'm talking to you now, down the line and in person on many, many occasions, who are outside the court there covering his very public downfall.
Yes, I mean, this whole Huw Edwards case perhaps more keenly felt by his BBC former colleagues than any of us. I mean, I only met him once. I don't know him at all, but there were people here who've spent many years working with him and talking to him from outside court like I'm talking to you. I think I can probably just jump in front of the camera again. So he's gone. He looked reasonably calm. He made a point, I think, of chatting to a woman who we think must be one of his lawyers as he walked out, ignoring the inevitable questions that were thrown at him. And it was interesting to see. It was a very smart limo, a Mercedes, I think. And the woman he was talking to opened the door to let him get into the back seat. I can't imagine that he's going to experience from now on many people opening car doors for him to get in and out. He is a pariah figure and he is so well recognised. And you know, wherever he goes publicly, certainly in the short term, he's going to find it very, very difficult, because I'm sure he's going to face you know, a lot of abuse and comment wherever he goes. We were told that he is being treated at the moment as an inpatient, so I imagine that that's where he's headed now, to that mental health facility. But at some stage, of course, when he's made enough progress, and we were told today that he is making progress, he'll have to go back to, you know, whatever normal life he can continue with, but will, you know, still be a very, very recognisable figure, especially because of the publicity around this case and those very serious crimes that he's admitted.
Indeed. Martin, thanks very much. And just before we step away from this story, let's just return to Liam Cottery, criminal defence lawyer, who's been giving us his help and expertise this morning. Liam, what are your final reflections on this sentencing today?
Well, it's been an unusual situation in terms of the sentence, the fact that things have stayed in the magistrates' court, no sexual harm prevention order. But I don't think the public need to be worried about Huw Edwards in the future. I can't see him reoffending. I think today has shown that what someone would go through, the shame, the scrutiny when someone's convicted of such an offence, and hopefully that would be a deterrent for the future. Again, I've dealt with hundreds of these cases, and it's an unusual sentence, but the allegation, the circumstances, the offences, the pre-sentence report and mitigation are all very common. The scenario of this man who has found himself in this situation at this time of his life is quite a common situation, but the sentence and the sexual harm prevention order and lack of Crown Court sentencing is unusual for this celebrity.
Indeed, and I suppose it's most important that perhaps we should always reflect in these situations, as Bernardo's has said, on the children who were the subject of these images that will have had long-lasting effects as a result of them. So just to reprise the breaking news that's happened in the last half hour, Huw Edwards, the former BBC News presenter, has been sentenced to 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. It does include a sex offender treatment programme and 25 rehabilitation sessions. He has been told he must sign the sex offenders register for 7 years.